there's work for us to do. Hey, the push is on, the job is up to you. We can make it a better place to live in right now. Can we count on you? Hey, the push is on, there's work for us to do. Hey, the push is on, the job is up to you. We can make it a better place to live in right now. Can we count on you? Hey, we can make it a better place. We can make it a better place if we only try, only try. We can make it a better place. We can make it a better place if we only try.
Good morning. I'm Pastor Henry Harding, one of the founding members of Operation Push. We've been called to the kingdom for such a time as this, to heal hurt, soothe suffering, mitigate misery, alleviate anxiety. We've been called to lift the downtrodden, and we come in the storied legacy of Dr. King, and we lift up in prayer the Reverend Dr. Jesse Lewis Jackson and his family. This is coming to the end of 2025, and we say we about alive and no drive. We've got drive in 25, but now 26 is upon us, and in 26 we must not get in a fix. We must heal hurt. We must go forward in faith. Don't give up, but to gear up, to be involved and not indifferent, to be aware and alert, to be attuned to purpose. We're called to tell people today, now is the time to heal the brokenness. Dr. King said it well. If it is to be, it is up to me. We cannot talk about woulda, coulda, shoulda, but we must give a new ringing endorsement to self-assertiveness. Push has been a viable voice for this community for years and years and years. And so I don't want you now just to look at us on television or hear us on the radio, but I want you to challenge yourself, because I'm calling you in 2026 to get involved. It's one thing to be in a distant relationship, but now there's a time for intimate involvement, to come to share and to care. We have got to challenge those principalities and powers that would cause misery and malice to reign and be pandemic in our time. So I'm here today as a founding member to say you become a member today of the Rainbow Push Coalition. We celebrate the legacy, the depth, the dimension, the relevance, the richness of the Reverend Dr. Jesse Lewis Jackson. We lift up the family today because Reverend Jackson's legacy that is worldwide is still Chicago-based. And I want you at the base to understand you can make haste to the Operation Push headquarters here, 930 East 50th Street, here in Chicago, Illinois. We affirm victory for the cause, and we will not pause. We've been called to the kingdom for justice, liberation, and dignity. So I say to you, they gave me as we were moving forward. And I'm going to read these for you. I normally don't do papers, but we're here to honor Jesse's legacy, Dr. Jackson's legacy. Hunger relief, food security, 26. That's on the ballot. That's on the ballot. Youth education, empowerment. We have a developmental dynamic for the whole family of this community. And so we challenge you as we go forward in faith to exercise a new dimension of depth and dimension, that the Operation Push movement will continue to surge forward, and that we'll be the army of the anointed and the squadron of selfhood and the troops of truth. We can do that, and we affirm it. We believe it. It is so, and so it is. And we say in 2026, may God bless you, may God keep you, and may God affirm you for a new victory and a new day of triumph and truth. This is the Rainbow Push Coalition, and so it is.
Lift every voice let it resound loud as a rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Welcome to the Rainbow Push Coalition broadcast. We're excited to be here. First, before we start this part of our broadcast segment, I want to thank Reverend Dr. Henry O. Hardy. He has been our friend and our pastor and a friend of Reverend Jesse L. Jackson. They were students together in Divinity School many, many years ago. It was with Reverend Hardy that Reverend Jackson was riding in a car and they heard Reverend Dr. Clay Evans on the radio, and they were so inspired by the beautiful music they heard that they went that moment and drove over to Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, and the rest is history. They became members of the church, and the relationship between Rainbow Push and Fellowship, between Reverend Jesse L. Jackson, Reverend Henry Hardy, and Reverend Clay Evans has been indeed a historic one. So we'd like to thank Reverend Hardy for opening our program today. It means a lot to our history. It is unbroken continuity, our relationship with him and his ministry. We also thank him for kindly offering at the end of the program our giving tribute. So Reverend Hardy, we thank you for your continued commitment to our movement, to our family, to this work, and your continued participation. God is not finished with you yet either. Now, we've had a busy year at the National Rainbow Push Coalition. It's really been interesting, and we've tried to do what we do best, and that is to live up to our mission to gain, protect, and defend civil rights. Gaining, protecting, and defending civil rights, in fact, is quite hard work. Why is that? Because we have to not only adjust to the conditions we're in and excel, but we must also, after adjusting to the conditions that we're in and excelling, call out the unrighteousness in certain conditions and unfairness. And so our work always continues because we're continuing to redefine what civil rights is. And this year we've had challenges that we haven't seen in many, many years, probably since the 60s. We have had the Justice Department redefining what it means to defend civil rights. The Justice Department, which was designed at one level, especially in the 60s, to expand American democracy to those who've been left out, African Americans, women, other ethnic groups, and minorities, is now defending the rights of white males in particular for their civil rights. That's just constitutionally unsustainable, in my opinion. And then they have the support of the Supreme Court and other justices around the country that are giving credence to this level of redefinition of civil rights. And so the question we're going to continue to face in this environment is, how do we have success as disaffected and disenfranchised, historically disenfranchised people, given the changes in the civil rights definitions, in the changes in the Supreme Court? And actually around the country, there were 12 places where the Civil Rights Divisions had established offices. My understanding is that those have been closed down or made so small that they're basically de minimis. So the question is, how do we survive in an era where the rules on civil rights, the work we've done in the 60s that gave us 60 years of tremendous progress, has now changed dramatically, all within in the first few months of last year. And so what Rainbow Push Coalition did was gather together our partners, our friends, our ministers, and other organizations to begin to train and teach people. And we do that every Tuesday for about 4 months, training people on what Christian nationalism means and what the Seven Mountain Theory, what all those things are. We've worked really hard to educate people because we believe in measuring twice and cutting once. That's just one of the programs we did. We brought together our partners, Reverend Jamal Bryant and Reverend William Barber and others.
Jones, and we had Reverend Marshall Hatch, we had Reverend Otis Moss III, we had William Barber, who was just amazing, and then we had some women, Reverend Ginger Sorelli, and Reverend Frank Thomas took us to a whole nother level because he began to talk about how do you preach in a climate like this? What do you say? Where do you get the facts from? And so we began to have those classes, the prophetic classes so that preachers could learn and faith leaders could learn messaging.
Yeah.
And we even talked to other faith traditions who are wrestling with how do they respond, whether you're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, and other. How do you respond to these egregious practices that beset your people? The cuts that we're watching, cuts to SNAP, cuts to education, closing departments, diminishing history.
So we continue to build coalition through our faith-based leadership and our civic organizations relationships. And then, as part of that, we began to participate in marches. One of the things is that the Rainbow Push Coalition, we didn't come out marching on the early side,
Right.
but we did join the No Kings Day marches.
Day March and the John Lewis Day of Celebration. We
Yep.
marched with John Lewis. We assembled downtown as they were assembling around the country. And then we did a second No Kings Day March,
Right.
which was, I think, the largest in America ever.
And it was wonderful that in spite of his fight with progressive supranuclear palsy, our founder and our president, Reverend J.C.L. Jackson Sr., my father, participated in the marches with us.
He did. And the thing I like about it, Reverend Jackson moves you to the front. We were front and center every march.
So he was leading the marches from his wheelchair.
Absolutely.
He does more on a wheelchair than many people can do on a horse.
And the big march we did, our tradition is boycotting and challenging corporate America. And so when Reverend Jamal Bryant came and we joined that as a part of our convention, we left the convention going downtown to challenge Target.
Yeah, we challenged the Target on State Street here in Chicago. We joined the national protest for our dignity. We believe in using our dollars with discipline, and for organizations that are going to use us and see us simply as consumers and don't allow us to participate in the buying of their property and putting stores on HBCU campuses and investing in their marketplace, our consumer marketplace, so that we can have a better share of the equity of their organizations, well, then we don't do business with them.
I thought it was so powerful that when you opened up the year, you said, we got to understand what Project 2025 means. When you took us all the way back to the Heritage Foundation, most people didn't know the Seven Mountains theory. It was so much that we didn't know. And then to come out of that, having the faith leaders getting involved. And then we went to something else. As we looked at the cuts, you remember all these draconian cuts, you said, well, how are we going to feed hungry people? What are we going to do about it? And so we began to partner with some companies around feeding the homeless. We've always fed people, but this we tried to escalate this year.
Yeah. I guess there are 2 points that you just reminded me of. The first thing is how much effort has gone into what appears to be chaos
Yes.
at the executive branch level.
Right.
At one level, it is chaotic, but it's organized chaos. It's very intentional. The plan that the executive branch is following is a well-written, a well-studied plan, and it's been worked on for years. Literally, the Heritage Foundation obviously started in the 70s with roots in the 60s. Lewis Powell, one of our Supreme Court justices, is instrumental to that organization, and so is Mr. Kors. And the work they're doing and started in the late 60s and early 70s, and they got some friends and allies along the way. We're living within 2025. So that's one of the reasons we have to make sure that we're able to sustain our push and our movement forward. It's not just about going out and fighting everything you see. It's having the sustaining power to be able to continue to protest and stand up for your rights. Otherwise, you find yourself in the middle of an ocean, caught in deep waters, unable to continue to kick because you ran out of oxygen. And so we never want that to happen.
And I think one of the things that Reverend taught us and continues to teach us is organizing other people. When you talked about the coalitions, we work with the Urban League, we work with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the NAACP, work with organizations locally. And then one of the things he said, before you boycott or take an action, you do some research.
Yes.
And I think that was the whole impetus behind the faith leaders. We did a lot of research about what is the Heritage Foundation? What did they do? And you can go back and watch some of these on YouTube. Those of you who missed them the first time, go back and watch them again. How does this compare to Nazi Germany? What kinds of similarities can we find? And then we did a whole thing with migrants.
Yep.
What's happening to people who are foreigners among us, which is most of us, didn't start in America. And so how do we treat them and how do we protect them? That's a whole nother thing.
It's at one level, we are the luck of the draw. But for our conditions, we could be them. And so we must always be mindful of how we're treating the least of these in their time of need, whether it's children as they're working for nutrition and education, or parents as they're struggling with children, or people in the sunset of their lives. We must be sensitive to them at those painful moments. And so now we have what we call an immigration crisis. We have people here that don't have legal papers. Well, that's just a particular designation that we're using to create a wedge between people. This issue is we have to live up to our creed. Bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. Let's bring them here in an organized fashion. There are people who are here who've been fleeing war as well as displacement in their home countries, and there is room in America for these people. We must never, ever find ourselves not living up to our promise, the promise we have for our people, and really we're a light to the world when we're at our best.
Right.
And God will bless us as long as we continue to be at our best.
And then you and I watched a conversation led by another organization, John Rogers and some others, with the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. You remember?
Yeah.
As lawyers, well, you think you know the law until you hear someone espouse the law and
Yeah.
apply it to a situation. And so we really reestablished a strong partnership with the LDF, Legal
Yeah.
Defense and Education Fund.
The work they do is absolutely amazing. I mean,
Amazing.
if you don't contribute to the Legal Defense Fund, it was formed the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, I encourage you to. Literally, I think at one time they had 75 cases
Yes.
that were active around the country, all working towards defending our rights against executive power overreach.
And that was important for us to be able to share who's fighting for you, who's doing anything for you. And so when we met with the Legal Defense Fund, they came to one of our Saturday sessions, talked about the cases that they filed and those kind of things. I'm just so excited when I think about how we responded to the crisis. We would tell you how we got here. And then in the tradition of our organization, we don't just say, well, we got a big problem. And particularly Yusef, he doesn't like to hear us complain about what we don't have. It's what we're going to do about
And
it.
we got to use what we got. You know, the other thing, you said it just a few minutes ago, I think it's really important to reiterate, meeting the need of the hungry in our communities. We're seeing the expansion of food banks running out of food. We're seeing the expansion of needs of people and families who are food insecure,
Right.
both in school, the homeless population, as well as folks you would never imagine to be food or hunger insecure, and they are. And so we've tried to find a way to, with dignity, offer these food services right here out of Rainbow Push. And with our
Absolutely.
partners. One noted partnership we had was with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Wonderful, wonderful partnership that we started really back 20 years ago when Orrin Hatch was senator from Utah. But we've continued that relationship 20 years hence, and they supported us. They brought 2 53-foot-long trailers of food from Utah to Chicago. And that weekend we distributed over 2,000 or 3,000, several hundred pounds of food, bags per family in Chicago.
And I mean, you had steak, you had roast beef, we had chickens. I mean, it was
Really high quality
It was
stuff.
high quality
Really
stuff.
high quality
'Cause
stuff.
They,
It was beautiful.
They grow everything, so it was just fresh. And people, I remember this one family, 9 children came, and they were very orderly and very dignified. And I was thinking 9 miles plus parents.
That's tough. I complain about the 5 children
You-
I
you
have, and
complain
they're
about
hard to
5.
feed. And then you think about, we had also for the month of December, we do this every December in partnership with Mariano's company and Kroger, with our wonderful partner Amanda Puck from Mariano's and
Right.
Kroger. We distribute 400 bags of food per week here at the Rainbow Push Coalition headquarters in honor of our Founders Month. So that's 400 times 4 for 1,600 families we're able to feed throughout the month of December.
And guess this, our founder, when we started the month, was in the hospital, and we're there with him, we're praying, and he said, no, don't keep looking at me. Look at the needs of the people that you are called to serve, that we're called to serve. And so he came up with this 4 million people in America need to be fed between
Over a
now-
2-month period,
Over
yeah.
a 2-month period. So we're working on it, and you can help us with that.
Thank you.
Hey, who opens doors that I cannot see? What's the answer, y'all? Jesus will. Jesus will. Oh, who will make all my decisions for you? Jesus will. Oh, God. Jesus will. Hey, when I'm in trouble, He gives me a song. Hey, in the night season and all the day long. Hey, who makes me do right when I wanna do wrong? Jesus will. Oh, God, Jesus will. Oh, yes. Oh, hey, Jesus will. I know He will because He. Oh, yeah. Jesus will. I know He will. He said He will. You fight my battles if I can still bear my head. I know that He will. Oh, Jesus will.
The Rainbow Push Coalition continues to be busy. As we say here, the push is on, the push is on, the push is on. We have nearly 52 programs a year, every week, every Saturday, minus about 2, so 50 programs a year. We are open at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning through 2 or 3 in the afternoon, where we feed people breakfast and lunch. We also have our community service program, our Saturday morning forum, which is covered on WJYS, the Word Network Live, and WVON Radio here in Chicago, Illinois. But you can see us on YouTube, Facebook, and all the social media sites, as well as international broadcasting. So every Saturday you can see what we do, and it's at our Saturday morning forum where we continue to establish partnerships with advocates and lawyers and judges, friends, politicians, and other community and civil rights organizations. And we explain to you what's going on in our local communities and how it relates to us internationally. So that's the first thing. And then in January, we start every January with our large King Breakfast that Push Excel sponsors. Reverend Jeanette has been the impetus of our King Breakfast for many, many years. You tell us about that?
Oh, I'm excited about the King Breakfast because we raise money for programs for children. We have a STEM program, we have a scholarship program, we have an oratorical, all of which need to be improved and expanded. But the breakfast it opens the year, really.
Yeah.
And every elected official, every appointed official, every business wants to be at the breakfast because we start the year saying this is where we are educationally, this is where we are academically with our students, and these are the needs.
And it's real. It's real. You know,
real.
we're not meeting the needs, I think, with respect to education, academics, but we're continuing to try. And then we move into Black History Month in February. We begin a teaching series, educating people about the work of African Americans throughout our history and throughout this country. And then in March, we go to New York for Wall Street. We call it the Wall Street Project, where we bring together money, market, and opportunity. We have capital along with talented people. We go to the stock exchange and do a wonderful program. Our good sister Cynthia DeBartolo runs that program. We're so grateful for Cynthia and Rebecca in New York. Thank you so kindly for your work, Cynthia and Rebecca. We look forward to seeing you at Wall Street in March.
And then we always go next to the convention. We have a college tour in April. But then we get to the convention in June.
Don't pass over that wonderful college tour.
I'm not going to pass
We
over.
take children to 5 or 6 HBCUs every year. And they leave on a bus from Chicago. Sometimes they fly, but we are training them on getting used to being on a college campus.
8 days, 7 nights. I've been on the bus. And we encourage parents to think about is your child college bound or is your child career bound? Either way, you have to train them. If they're college bound, they need to visit HBCUs,
Yeah.
see what college looks like, learn the history of HBCUs. And so we will have the college tour in April during spring break.
Although I will tell you that these are very mature young people, the pictures are more exciting than the reality. They're still young people. So, and for us old people traveling with the young people, it's wonderful. I know I just hit the microphone, guys. I'm sorry for that. Just as for my B-roll backstage team knows that I just hit the microphone. But we have our college tour in April, and then we go into our convention in June.
Now, the convention is a time when we convene people from around the country. This year, 2025 was really an interesting year. We moved the convention to 3 locations.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, we got around the city.
We get around the city, we open with the broadcast, but then you had 2 guys that you brought in to look at economics.
Oh my goodness. So we were honored this year to have a special presentation by the Honorable George C. Frazier. George Frazier came and he told us a story. He didn't pull any punches with respect to organizing our culture as it relates to our economics. And then we had John Hope Bryant.
John
What a
Hope Bryant.
special man
Oh
he
my
was,
goodness.
he is, and what a special presentation he offered us. He told us, hey, listen, you got to get your credit score straight, and that's actually well within your purview to do so. I'll help you right now. And that will, in fact, change your economic outlook significantly.
And we went to a black-owned business to do it. We went to the Supper Club.
We went with Brother Torrey Barrett. He was very kind to allow us to use his space. He is a son of Pastor T.L. Barrett, another one of our founding members.
But I think that was interesting because WVON carried it live. We were on radio live that day. And then they kept saying, what are the women going to do? What are the women going to do? Well, we went to Soho House and had a major reception with all of the women organizations in the city.
High-end upscale event at the Soho House with our women.
Yeah, and it was different women-driven led organizations. We had the Jack and Jills, and we had the Top Ladies of Distinction. We had the sororities. It was just powerful.
Yeah.
We had not come together as women-led organizations before in a long time.
I was told that was one of the best events we've done.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I was there.
I was there too, and it was. If you next year, don't miss it.
You
Don't
can't
miss it. It's
miss
a
it.
beautiful event. And then we rolled right into back to school.
Back to school, and that was phenomenal.
We
Now,
took over the street outside.
We had a block party, and we had the little trains, and we had all kinds of stuff. We had food. We had everything. And book bags. We gave away book
We're
bags.
grateful
with
for the
supplies.
Chicago Bears for the book bags that they provided to us, as well as their NFL experience. We're grateful to R.J. Melman and Let Us Entertain You for the gift cards they gave us.
For the teachers.
Food for the teachers. And we're grateful to, I think it was Amazon.
Amazon.
Amazon was very kind. They gave us gift cards for use, for the teachers to use for back to school. Teachers every year spend out of their hard-earned dollars to provide supplies for their classrooms. And so this year, we gave them a gift for them, which is a restaurant opportunity in Chicago, as well as an opportunity to get more supplies sponsored by us. In addition to that, I want to thank J.R. Hand and Companies. J.R. Hand is our Anheuser-Busch distributor here in Chicago, and they were very kind. They actually were able to take the food, and we used their draft cooler to keep the food fresh for the giveaways of the food for that day.
Because we had a lot of fresh vegetables, we had a lot of frozen items, and they took care of everything. That was one of the trucks provided by the Latter-day Saints. So it was a great day. Families came, our neighbors came and participated in the back-to-school block party.
And you might see a video of me dancing on stage
He
somewhere
tried.
deep in the internet.
He tried. Not on step.
And then we had a very special September and October with Reverend Jesse Jackson's birthday. We always celebrate his birthday, which is October 8th, 1941. This year was the first year he wasn't able to join us in person. But I'll promise you, we still had his coconut cake, and we delivered his cake to him, and he enjoyed it very, very much. But it was very special because we coincided his birthday with a special event with Sister Abby Phillip from CNN.
Which was just powerful. You know, many people know Reverend Jackson.
But tell her about the book, though.
I'm going to get
Okay.
back to the book.
Sorry about that.
Many of you know, you heard about Reverend Jackson, you've heard him speak, but very few have read a book about him. And Abby Phillips, an award-winning journalist, wrote this book about Reverend Jackson, and we had this reception launching the book. And all of the Jackson's oldest children and Yusef, the youngest, spoke. in conversation with Abby Phillips. It is a powerful book. If you haven't
Remember,
gotten
we had Reverend Al Sharpton came
Reverend
in
Al
for the
Sharpton,
day.
yeah.
We had Bob Borsage, Yolanda Caraway. We had Jim Zogby. All of them came in,
all
right?
of the original people.
Rainbow Push Coalition people.
Coalition people came. Zogby was there.
Yeah, they were all there. Well, they came in because her book really focuses on his life up until 1988 through his presidential runs. And so we had some of the original members of the National Rainbow Coalition cast to come and join us on stage and talk about their experiences with him then. And then in November, we had a really, really wonderful special.
Oh, you forgot.
Thanks.
You got to go back
Tell
to
me.
October.
What happened in October?
You went to the automotive summit.
Oh, forgot about that.
John Graves, I
forgive me,
reminded him.
Detroit. Forgive me, Detroit. I cannot. We talked about the women's event. That was an excellent event. The automotive event is probably, maybe hands down, soup to nuts, one of the best events that we do.
Oh, absolutely. Tell them, why do we have automotive?
Oh, it's really important. So Reverend Jackson's theory was to really approach all of the industries in the country that made the biggest difference with workers and workers' rights and people. So that's oil, that's automotive, that's consumer products, that's
Silicon
Wall Street
Valley.
Finance, Silicon Valley. And so we've had this relationship with the the three OEMs for a number of years and the other automotive manufacturers as well. And that culminated into an event called the Automotive Project, which we now hold in Detroit. It's run by our Detroit division, chaired by Chairman John Graves and his able assistant, Alfreda Weathers. We thank them for the work that they did.
Absolutely.
But they had a wonderful event bringing together various Detroit suppliers and the diversity reps from the companies, as well as some of the CEOs from the companies. So we talked about how we do more business. And some of these automotive companies, African Americans and Hispanics together, represent well over 1/3 of their market share. And when we talk about equity and parity, how many dealers do we have between the two groups? You're in the low single-digit percentages. And what's our supply chain relationship with our types of organizations? And these organizations, you can't, it's not just about a black company or Hispanic company. The issue with these companies is they hire other African American and Hispanic people, and that allows you to lift people out of poverty when you're able to hire people that you see. Most folks they hire are people they know, they went to school with, they've lived with. And then because we have a housing segregation problem in the country, and an education segregation problem in the country, a lot of the large companies don't see African American and Hispanic talent. And so we have to see it in ourselves. And so when you have African American and Hispanic suppliers, they tend to hire African American and Hispanic people. And these organizations support neighborhoods to lift neighborhoods out of poverty. That's why it's important, equity and parity.
And I think part of it is, and you know this as a lawyer, you have to begin to grow your business so that you can compete and participate with these major companies. You can't just produce one or two items. You have to be able to move large amounts of volume of supplies to the chain, because they're using just-in-time inventories in these automotive companies. You got to learn the technology of today. Your company has to be retrofitted to fit into the technology. I remember when we met with, I think it was Saturn, and they were talking about just-in-time inventory. So you have to have your plant available to drop something in and move it out.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that people talk about DEI. It's not about DEI. It's about readiness and about the ability to have the capital to expand. Like we did with Taylor Wright Cleaners some years ago. He wanted to clean more clothes, so Reverend Jackson negotiated for him to be able to clean for the uniforms of the Bears, not the Bears,
White
the
Sox.
White Sox and Cubs. Well, in order to do that, you have to have new equipment.
Yeah.
In order to get the new equipment, you need some more investment financially. Once you get that, then you are a sustainable company. You can grow and develop. And that's what we're doing with automotive. We were doing it with the Wall Street Project. How do you get your financial services up to scale?
Yeah. Silicon Valley, too. Thanksgiving was a very special time of the year for our organization. We open up our kitchen, we open up our community hall to about 300 families. And this year we served 300 families from diverse backgrounds. We had veterans, we had seniors, we had young people and old. We had people who were food insecure and people who were just insecure, looking for company. And so it was a treat from the Jackson family and the Rainbow Push Coalition family to be here on Thanksgiving. And we just had a nice family meal from 12 till about 2. We played music, we talked, we cracked some jokes. We
We
did
had
some
fun.
funny off-color things, and we enjoyed a happy holiday Thanksgiving. And then we left enough time for everybody to go and do an additional one if you wanted to with your family.
Yes.
But you enjoyed yourself with the Rainbow Push Coalition family. We want to thank all of those who participated with us from the Hyde Park neighborhood in Chicago and neighborhoods throughout Chicago to come and join and eat with us. We had a delicious Thanksgiving meal.
It
We're
was
grateful
great.
to God for that.
It was great.
That was
I
wonderful.
wish
yeah.
I had eaten more.
I wish I had eaten more. I wish I had eaten less, actually. But that rounds off our year for the Rainbow Push Coalition. As I said at the beginning of our program, we've been very, very busy this year. We continue to be busy, and we look forward to working on our mission for next year. Thank you. Please stay tuned for Reverend Stephen J. Thurston.
Well, before you go, what I want you to remember is join us in person on January 10th. You're going to hear a very special message of where are we going. Many of you have been asking, what is Push going to do? What are we going to do in 2026? I won't tell you, but this young man will be able to tell you. We're going to have a State of Push message on January 10th, and we'll bring you up to date on what's happening in the city, the county, the state, and the federal government, where we're going to work, what we're going to do. What do you need to do? You need to be here, 930 East 50th Street. Make your way. If you're going to plan your vacation, come January 10th. You need to be here. Say to yourself, I got to be there at 9 o'clock for breakfast and then 10 o'clock for the broadcast.
I'm looking forward to it.
Push, as we come to the end of 2025, allow me to pause and take a few moments to discuss with us the unfinished work of liberation. For the reality stands that as we cascade towards the close of this year and reflect on the chaos, the confusion, and the sheer craziness that has consumed this country over the last 11 months, the temptation is to rush towards explanations, to label it, blame it, or dismiss it as political theater, moral decay, or just how things are. But before we try to diagnose what we're witnessing on the national stage, let me invite you into a much smaller, a far more familiar scene, one you've probably experienced without ever stopping to interpret it. I want you to think about what happens when an insect finds itself trapped in your living room. Maybe it's a roach, a wasp, a spider. Listen, it really doesn't matter. What matters is the moment it realizes the exits are gone. The walls, they now feel closer. The air begins to shift. Something in this tiny nervous system registers that the end is no longer theoretical. Nah, it's imminent. And pay attention to what it doesn't do. It doesn't calm down. It doesn't accept the inevitability with grace. It doesn't lie down and cooperate with extinction. The reality of the matter and the moment is that that insect is going to fight. You'll notice that it moves erratically. It lashes out with stingers and legs and jaws. It expands a shocking amount of energy for something so small. Because when survival is threatened, dignity becomes optional and restraint disappears. The closer death gets, the louder the resistance becomes. And here's the unsettling truth of 2025, something that's been made painfully clear this year. Anything facing extinction is going to fight like hell to stay alive. And white supremacy, that old diseased system of domination that has shaped our institutions, our policies, and even our unspoken rules, it knows its benediction is approaching. Oh, it can read the demographics. It can see multiracial coalitions forming and fighting. It can feel its grip loosening on the levers of unchallenged power. And like that concerned insect, it is not responding with humility or repentance. No, it's thrashing with the desperate violence of something that would rather destroy everything than accept its own necessary death. Sociologist Emil Durkheim gave us a word for moments like this. He called it anime, a state of normallessness that emerges when an old social order is collapsing, but the new one has not yet fully taken shape. It's the anxiety of transition, the panic of uncertainty, The terror that comes when the rules that once protected you no longer work. Push, we're living in that liminal space right now. And what we've witnessed in 2025 is not random cruelty or political overreach. No, it's strategic panic. It's the calculated flailing of a dying order that has glanced into the future and realized it doesn't recognize itself there. This year, they didn't just pass laws, they violated the spirit of the Constitution. They didn't just enact policies, they attacked the very premise that this nation could ever belong to all of us. And in doing so, they revealed something with the clarity of a lightning strike. They would rather burn the house down than live in it as equals. But brothers and sisters, I didn't stop by Push this morning just to chronicle defeat. No, I came to decode the moment. Because when you understand why the resistance has become this frantic, when you can see the desperation beneath the domination, you can then discern the trajectory. Listen, here's the reality. Their time is ending, and our time is coming. And the violence of this transition is not evidence of our weakness. No, it's proof of transformation's power. Let me take us a step deeper into the psychology of what we're witnessing here, because our liberation depends on our ability to analyze power with precision, not just passion. In social psychology, there's a concept called relative deprivation. It describes the anxiety people experience not when they are actually losing ground, but when they perceive their status declining in relation to others who are rising. Listen, that distinction matters. White America, particularly white male America, is not across the board experiencing economic collapse, but it is experiencing something it finds far more destabilizing: the erosion of guaranteed superiority, the slow unraveling of an unearned inheritance that whispered, no matter how far you fall, at least you're not black, at least you're not brown, at least you're not them. In 2025, we watched this psychological crisis metastasize into public policy. Because when you've built your identity on hierarchy, equality doesn't feel like justice. No, it feels like loss. When you've lived your whole life with your foot on someone's neck, their decision to stand up feels like violence. And when the architecture of your self-worth depends on someone else staying beneath you, their liberation becomes your existential crisis. And here's the party that understands but will never confess out loud. The future no longer needs them the way the past did. The browning of America isn't a slogan. No, it's a demographic reality. Gen Z is the most diverse generation this nation has ever produced. They're more likely to have friends across racial lines, more likely to support racial justice, more likely to see white supremacy not as tradition, but as the outdated relic it is. The generation coming up, it doesn't carry the same emotional investments in preserving the old racial order. They're not trying to fix the house the way it was. No, they're imagining something entirely different. Matter of fact, something better. And that terrifies the keepers of the old guard. So what did we witness in 2025? We saw the thrashing, the violent, erratic, desperate thrashing of a system that knows its time is running out. Let me be forensic in examining this year's assaults, because our people deserve the dignity of precision, not just the false comfort of vagueness. Affirmative action didn't just expire in college admissions. It was systematically executed across every arena where it had created even the smallest aperture for our advancement. Corporate diversity programs dismantled, federal contracting set-asides erased, the very language of equity treated like contraband in government agencies and boardrooms, and then came the rebrand. White supremacy, it didn't disappear. It simply changed its vocabulary. It renamed itself married. It baptized itself in colorblindness, as if 4 centuries of engineered exclusion could be undone by pretending not to see race. As if ignoring the boot on someone's neck makes the pressure disappear. But let's be honest about what married means in their mouths. It means legacy admissions for mediocre white children whose grandparents bought their way into Yale. It means networking pipelines through country clubs where we were legally barred from entering. It means internships secured through family connections we don't have because our grandparents were locked out of wealth building through redlining and racial terror. It means resume callbacks for Emily and Brandon over Lakeisha and Jamal, even when the qualifications are identical. Merit is not neutral. It is inherited privilege dressed up in the language of achievement. And then voting rights. Yeah, voting rights, those critical elements that our ancestors fought so hard for. John Lewis bled on the Edmund Pettus Bridge for those rights. Fannie Lou Hamer was beaten until her kidneys were permanently damaged for those rights. Medgar Evers was murdered in his own driveway for those rights. And in 2025, we watched those blood-bought victories dismantled with the bureaucratic efficiency of accountants liquidating a failing business. Polling places vanished from black neighborhoods while multiplying in white suburbs. Geography weaponized its voter suppression. Voter ID laws proliferated, each one demanding documents that cost money and time and transportation that working people don't have. Drop boxes disappeared. Early voting windows narrowed to exclude those working multiple jobs. Felony disenfranchisement expanded because mass incarceration was always designed as the new Jim Crow, and denying felons the vote is simply Jim Crow in a criminal justice costume. And the language, oh my God, the language, election integrity. As if the threat to democracy was my grandmother voting, not the coordinated, well-funded effort to make sure she couldn't. They wrapped disenfranchisement in the flag and called it patriotism. The economic violence of 2025 also forces us to speak plainly about poverty. As poverty is not an accident, it's not a character flaw. No, it's a policy choice. It is violence in slow motion. They slashed SNAP benefits that kept children hungry while locking in permanent tax cuts for billionaires. The child tax credit that lifted millions of children out of poverty allowed to expire. Then parents were blamed for struggling. Rental assistance that kept roofs over people's heads defunded. Medical expansion that brought health care to the working poor rolled back with surgical cruelty. I need you to do this math with me. When you cut $80 billion from food assistance while handing $1.9 trillion in tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans, you're not balancing a budget. You're making a moral declaration. You are announcing whose hunger matters, whose children matter, whose lives count in the eyes of the state. And then, having engineered the deprivation, they have the audacity to call us lazy, to tell us to work harder, to blame us for poverty that they designed, disinvestment they orchestrated, and barriers they meticulously built. This is what sociologist Johan Galton called structural violence. So embedded in the architecture of society that it becomes invisible to those who benefit from it. In our schools, the assault expanded to truth itself. Critical race theory, a graduate-level legal framework most of its attackers couldn't define with a dictionary and a research team, was transformed into a moral panic to justify banning books, silencing teachers, and bleaching history until it was unrecognizable. They teach the Civil War without centering slavery, Reconstruction without naming how it was violently overthrown. The civil rights movement without identifying white violence as the resistance our ancestors confronted. American prosperity without stolen indigenous land or stolen African labor. They are raising a generation inside a fog of manufactured amnesia, and then acting surprised when history keeps repeating itself. But understand this, you don't erase the truth because you're strong. You erase it because you're terrified of what happens when people learn it. And then we can't leave this conversation without highlighting healthcare. In 2025, Black maternal mortality remained 3 times higher than white women. 3 times. In the richest nation in human history. Black infants dying at twice the rate. Life expectancy gaps widening, medical deserts spreading throughout our communities like cancer, while luxury hospitals bloom in affluent suburbs. The pandemic already told us the truth. Our lives are considered acceptable losses in the calculus of capitalism. Oh, you remember the term essential workers. Listen, that was always code for expendable workers. And 2025 proved they learned nothing or learned exactly how much they could get away with. But here's where we have to move from documentation to interpretation, from recording history to speaking prophetically into it. We have to ask the question that unlocks everything. Why this? Why now? Why this particular configuration of cruelty? And the answer is unsettlingly simple. They can see the future and they are terrified of it. They look at the demographics and watch their numerical dominance evaporate. They looked at Black Lives Matter, immigrants' rights movements, indigenous sovereignty struggles, climate justice organizing, and they saw the thing they fear most, coalition. They saw young people, black, brown, white, indigenous, Asian, queer, trans, disabled, linking arms and declaring that our liberation is interconnected. They saw us beginning to grasp a dangerous truth. We have far more in common with one another than any of us have with the billionaires who profit from our division. And so they rigged the game. They changed the rules. They gerrymandered democracy until it was barely recognizable. They packed courts. They weaponized the filibuster. They turned voting into an obstacle course. And when that wasn't enough, they flipped the whole board over and declared the game itself illegitimate. Push, make no mistake, friends. This is not the behavior of confidence. This is the behavior of panic. They learned something during the civil rights era. Overt racism creates martyrs and movements. Bull Connor with fire hoses and dogs forced the world to watch and recoil. So they've adapted. They learned to weaponize bureaucracy, to make oppression technical, procedural, and dull, so it unfolds in zoning board meetings, state subcommittees, and court rulings scheduled at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday when working people can't be present. Oh, this is sophisticated white supremacy that publishes policy papers, is funded by think tanks with respectable sounding names, and speaks in the calm cadence of technocrats while doing the ancient work of overseers. And it knows this. The only thing standing between oligarchy and absolute control is an organized, multiracial, class-conscious coalition that refuses to be divided. But here's what they forgot in their calculations. Y'all, we've been here before. Not metaphorically, but literally. Our ancestors built universities while literacy was illegal. They built churches with nooses hanging from trees. They built businesses while capital was systematically denied them. They built mutual aid economies because they understood a hard truth early. America would never love them enough to keep them alive. So they didn't wait on permission. They built freedom schools when public schools taught lies, credit unions when banks shut their doors, healthcare cooperatives when hospitals turned them away. They knew that they don't ask your oppressor to hand you the tools of your liberation. No, you build them yourself. And in 2025, in the middle of coordinated demolition, I watched us remember. Oh, I saw organizers quietly knocking doors in Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. No cameras, no clout, just the slow arithmetic of relationships. I saw mutual aid networks explode because we remembered the government may not save us, but we can save each other. Feeding one another, housing one another, bailing one another out, making survival possible and resistance sustainable. I saw young people reject respectability politics, occupy capitals, disrupt business as usual, and say plainly, the system ain't broke, it's working exactly as designed, and we need something different. I watched us sue and organize and run for office, build independent media because our stories weren't being told right, create alternative economies, teach our children the truth when schools offered amnesia, and show up for one another in ways that would make our ancestors nod in recognition. In 2025, we proved something essential. You can take our programs, but you can't take our purpose. You can rig the system, but you can't kill our spirit. You can roll back policy, but you can't reverse consciousness. Once people have tasted freedom, you can suppress it, punish it, delay it, but you can't make them unsee it. The biblical record records Nehemiah saying, "So we rebuilt the wall, for the people worked with all their heart." But I need you to read the whole story in its full context. They rebuilt under mockery, under threats, under conspiracy. They built with brick in one hand and defended with a weapon in another. This isn't a children's story. This is a blueprint. So what now, Stephen? We rebuild, but not alone and not the same. We organize like our lives depend on it, because they do. We run for everything. School boards, city councils, prosecutor's office, state houses, courts. They want us distracted by the presidency while they control daily life, but we're smarter than that. We build independent institutions, co-ops, credit unions, community land trusts, schools. Listen, this isn't separatism, it's strategy. Alternatives, so when they cut us off, we don't starve. We tell the truth to the next generation, the horror and the heroism, that our ancestors were not passive victims, but brilliant resistors, that freedom is never given, it's taken through organized, sustained struggle. We build multiracial coalitions, the ones they fear. Poor whites crushed by the same economy, immigrants scapegoated by the same forces, indigenous people fighting for land, LGBTQ plus folks fighting to live. Our struggles aren't identical, but our opponents are. And yes, we disrupt strategically, relentlessly, collectively, because justice has never arrived because power was persuaded. It arrives when oppression becomes too expensive to maintain. They can delay it. They can make the transition more violent, but they cannot stop it. We are going to win because we have something they don't. We know how to build from nothing. We've done it before, and push will do it again. Making a way out of no way is not poetry for us. It's a survival skill, a 400-year practice refined under pressure into liberation science. Like the builders in Nehemiah, one hand building, one hand ready, eyes on the horizon, feet planted in the struggle, no retreat, no resignation, no surrender. 2025 showed us who we're up against and what they're willing to do. Let 2026 show them who we are and what we're capable of. They knocked down walls this year, but we know something about walls. We've been climbing them, tunneling under them, and tearing them down for centuries. The walls are not new, and neither is our resistance. We are the builders, we are the wall, we are the resistance, and we will rebuild with all our heart every single day until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Now push, let's go to work, because the push is on.
We'd like to thank Stephen J. Thurston for his participation in the Rainbow Push Coalition broadcast. We're looking forward to seeing you next week.
For those of you who watch the Rainbow Push Coalition, you recognize it's an invaluable experience, and those who watch us and participate with us, who come to share with us, recognize the most powerful work that it does. But obviously, in this somewhat turbulent time, political convulsions from Washington, D.C., even to our local governmental institutions, it's apparent that these are challenging periods and there are forces that are arrayed against those who seek justice and dignity and liberation. So I'm asking those of you without shame or blame to support the Rainbow Push Coalition. It takes time and talent to marshal the resources that we bring to you on a weekly basis. Individuals come from all over the world, and they're present at the Rainbow Push Coalition. And we have professionally trained individuals who bring to you the best that we have to offer. But we do need viable financial support. This is not begging, but it's about the business of giving you a way to participate, to be involved and not to be indifferent, to be alert and not inert, because PUSH needs your help. And, you know, when people come to Chicago, it's an international city, and they may take people downtown to some of our world famous restaurants. But I would challenge you also to put on your social docket, bring someone out to the Rainbow Push experience. And I dare say that the spiritual and emotional and moral caloric content of this would be much more than any steak that you might eat in a restaurant. I'm challenging you to support Rainbow Push. We need your support. You cannot expect your enemies to support you. We're talking about social justice and equity, and we're talking about dignity and decency. We're talking about having political relevance. And those who would have us remain in a posture of weakness and bleakness are not going to support us. So I'm asking you to write a check or to come by, give us a call, and do something to help us. This is no shame. We're not ashamed to ask you, but we recognize the immediacy, the urgency, and the relevancy of your participation. The Rainbow Push, and that's what it is. It is a coalition, not just for the persons who talk on the public platform, but for people who make it happen. It's viable. You don't see all the workings of an automobile, but trust me, without certain components, the car will not move. And you are those components. You may not be seen physically, but you can participate. And you will make the engine and the locomotive of the Rainbow Push Coalition drive forward with verve and with vigor. So I encourage you to support us. Bring your friends. You go to the club, let this be the club at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. Now is the time for you to be involved and not indifferent. Now is the time for you to help so we won't be hurt, to share and to care, to lift and not cause a rift. If you do that, then the Rainbow Push Coalition will be more than just talking it, you'll be walking it. I'm looking to see you this week at the Rainbow Push Coalition, 930 East 50th Street. God bless you. God keep you. It's a family affair, and so it is.
We are sanctuary. We are a sanctuary.
When I think of Rainbow Push, I think of two words: social justice.
Education advocacy.
Political empowerment.
Freedom and equality.
Corporate partnership.
Stop the violence. Save the children. Don't get it. Shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down.
Political change.
Inclusion, evolution, progress, justice.
Jesse Jackson.
Keep hope. Keep hope alive. Keep hope. Keep hope alive. I am. Somebody. I am. Somebody. Protect me. Protect me. Never neglect me. Never neglect me.
We want to be bridges to end these cultural gaps.
But going forward by hope, not backward by fear.